to not at least take the swing
Yeah.
because, in my opinion, more Keegan Murrays come out than Donovan Mitchell's or Devin Booker's or
Right.
things like that. So, and I'm not saying that these guys are that at all. I'm not.
Yeah.
However, they have the better chance of getting there than Keegan Murray does. Let's just call it the way it is, right? What is going on? I want to welcome you from Half Court for today, Tuesday, June 7th. I'm your host, Sean Murphy, alongside my boy, Jeff Iafrady. Jeff, what it do, baby?
Oh, what it do? I'm feeling good. It's mock draft month, baby. And now we gotta look at a couple different mock drafts that we may like, we may not like. So it's gonna be
Yeah, exactly. And Jeff, you touch on it. You touch on it spot on. It's NBA mock draft season, and with that, Jeff and I decided to log on and look at what the landscape is saying out there. Now some important things to note. First of all, we're not doing any mock drafts of like we're gonna be looking at four, 3 national, 1 local. It's going to be the Detroit News, ESPN, The Ringer, and Sports Illustrated, and those are the drafts that we're going to be basing off of.
all
And
pretty reputable.
Yeah, and more specifically, we're really going to be focusing in on the top 5. So with that, because that's where we're interested in, that's where the Pistons are going to be at play. And so with that, Jeff, are you ready to get into it?
Oh, I'm ready.
Oh, heck yeah. But before you do, be sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that join button down below. Become a member, just like Dominique Davis, Justin Jones, Wade Ballou, and
Shout
others
out.
to continue to choose to do each and every day. So thank you to our current members. But with that, let's get right into it. So, Jeff, this first mock draft that we are going to be looking at is from Sports Illustrated. And this one is kind of straightforward. This one is as of 11 hours ago, so this is pretty fresh. So, Jeremy Woo of Sports Illustrated has the Magic taking Jabari Smith Jr. at number 1 overall. I mean, that just feels like a money pick, right, Jeff? Whoever you get out of those top 3 guys, like we've talked about, it's really you're getting a great player. It's just the magnitude of what you're getting from an offensive standpoint.
That top 3 is pretty interchangeable, just depending on fit, really.
Mm-hmm. And so obviously this draft, he has Jabari 1, he has Paulo 2, and Chet 3, which, in my opinion, I think the Thunder are going to go to Chet. If Chet is in the lap of Sam Presti, there's no shot in the world he's passing up on it. No chance.
Yeah, unless he sees Paulo as like a one of those players that could turn into a 25 plus per game score, point per game score. But yeah, I'd agree with you.
Right. Now, I'm not going to lie.
Now,
I'm not going to lie. Pick and roll with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Paolo Banchero. I like that as the foundation for something to build, especially with all those first round picks. You could trade those boys and get whatever the heck you want, dude. So they're going to have a lot of decisions to make coming up, this being one of them, obviously. I personally would go Chet here, but the Rockets with Chet is interesting as well. But this is where it gets interesting, Jeff, because at 4, this draft has the Kings taking Keegan Murray. And this is a really difficult draft for them to navigate. Obviously, we've talked about that before. But in my opinion, this is the most logical selection for the Kings. Is it not?
Oh, absolutely. And we had a if you haven't already, go check it out, podcast with our guy Leo, who's been covering the Kings for a while, and this is the guy he wants because he feels like he's the most NBA ready. And the Kings kind of have their pieces. They have their Domantas Sabonis, they have De'Aaron Fox, they have other pieces. Now they can add a guy who's immediately ready to contribute in Keegan Murray. So it makes sense.
Yeah,
can't fault it.
Yeah, without a doubt. And therefore, at 5 in this draft, the Pistons select Jaden Ivey. With that, Jeff, this kind of lines in the thinking that I had, which is if you have the opportunity to take Jaden Ivey at 5, I don't think you pass on it, especially with Keegan Murray off the board. In my opinion, even though Shaedon Sharpe has a really high ceiling, I think Jaden Ivey does too. And, this one, I'm not surprised. I think right now the 2 most popular names for that 5th spot are Jaden Ivey, but also another player, which Keegan Murray, who was taken before. What are your thoughts of this mock draft?
Makes perfect sense. And this is a player, and I agree with everything you said too. I think this is also a guy that, Pistons fans are excited about. I had a poll last week. Who would you want at number 5? 60% said Jaden Ivey. And I'm going to do another one
Yeah.
tomorrow, and I'm sure it'll be very similar. So great pick by the
Yeah.
Pistons. You get a dynamic player in the backcourt on a rookie deal, someone who can just, pick apart defenses, especially if because you've seen his jump shot, especially at his workout. I think, it doesn't look as beautiful as like a Shaden Sharp or, Ben Mathurin, but sure, he's going to be formidable. He's going to be a fantastic player. So,
Yeah,
as a Pistons
without a
fan, you're
doubt.
excited. You're
Yeah,
definitely excited.
without a doubt. And the interesting thing about this mock draft is that he doesn't have Shaden Sharp going until the 8th overall pick. Now, Jeff, if there is a world where the New Orleans Pelicans have Brandon Ingram, Shaden Sharp, CJ McCollum, and Zion Williamson,
Yeah.
holy, like, what? That would be the steal of the draft, in my opinion.
Yeah. And then Zion just slides his way in there, healthy again.
Exactly. And then they have
great
Benedict
selection by
Mathurin
him.
going at 10. I wanted to show where Benedict Mathurin goes, just for all those people saying that Benedict Mathurin's the consensus at 5. I'm just showing y'all where the mocks have him, okay? All I'm saying. But this is a pretty run-of-the-mill mock draft. I like what we're seeing out of it, to be honest. But going to the next one, this is from the Detroit News. And Jeff, a little bit of a difference here. So with the Detroit News, their mock draft 1.0, with the first pick, they have Orlando going with my guy, Chet Holmgren. And in my opinion, I think this is a really good slam dunk pick at 1 because I think this is the home run guy, right? This is the guy that you can bring in and he can change the course of your franchise and everything that you're doing. And this is the guy that can do it in multiple different parts of the court. So Orlando going with Chet, especially at the beginning of their rebuild, to me makes a lot of sense too. So you could definitely make the argument for that too. So really, whoever Orlando gets at number 1, they're getting a great player. So,
Absolutely.
without a doubt. And then Oklahoma City going with Jabari. I think Jabari Smith Jr. for OKC, I think that's his best fit, in my opinion. I think that's just where he can go in with a really young roster, play really hard, be a really solid contributor right away, be one of their best players right away.
Yeah, and be around some great playmakers.
Yep.
That's only going to make him better.
Yeah, exactly. Josh Giddey and SGA on the court as well. I mean, in my opinion, that's just a match made in heaven right there. So, and for those guys to get a lob threat, but also someone that can help them on the defensive side of the ball too. I think that's just going to help that team only get better. And then you have the Rockets with Paolo. I still don't love this fit, Jeff. I don't love the Paolo fit with Houston. From an offensive standpoint, I see it. Absolutely, I see it. But but defensively, is Steven Silas, is that the coach that's going to command the locker room? Is that the guy that's going to hold these guys accountable? I haven't seen it yet, Jeff.
No, now you have 2 guys. Your 2 franchise players at this point would be 2 guys that are questionable on the defensive side of the ball. And that's I'm sure it could be teach, especially you'd have 2 dynamic players. But again, I'd agree with you. I don't really like the fit, but I could see Houston taking Paolo just because you got to take him. He's right there.
Without a doubt. And then this is where it gets interesting. And this just shows how varied these mock drafts are, right? Because right here, we have Shaden Sharp going at 4. And with that, the Pistons, in this one, they also go Jaden Ivey. So in my opinion, I thought they were going to go Keegan Murray in this draft. It was available, but here that Keegan Murray goes 6 to Indiana. Jeff, a lot of Pistons Twitter has it convinced that Keegan Murray's the guy. In a lot of sense, if you were to ask me my gut feeling of who we're drafting, if we were going into the draft right now, Keegan Murray would also be my gut reaction as well. What do you think about the prospect of drafting Keegan Murray with one of those guards on the board? Are you a fan of that? And do you think that's a good decision? Or do you think that we're maybe not giving Keegan Murray enough credit just because he might not have the upside of some of these other guys?
And I think the main thing too is what do they do with Jeremy? If
Uh-huh.
Jeremy were to be dealt and you get that 7th overall pick, whoever it is, you deal him for whatever, then you feel a lot more comfortable because you know the fit. You know he's going to slide right into where Jeremy was. So I guess that makes more sense. But I guess it's just not a player that, people, are excited or they get him up in the morning to be excited about the NBA draft. But I will say this, Keegan certainly has an upside. He's going to be a great player. When you have two dynamic guys that I think are just going to be better in their careers, and of course I could be wrong, but Jaden Ivey, even Ben Mather and Shaden Sharp, those three intrigue me the most. I'm pretty sold on getting a
Mhm.
backcourt player with Kate Cunningham, but if you like Keegan Murray, I can't hate you. I mean, it makes sense. And if you're going off what Troy Weaver, he preaches, is they draft the person, not the player. And that Keegan Murray, I think, in terms of maturity, he checks all the boxes. So it would make the
Yeah.
most sense to your point.
Yeah, without a doubt. And he might have some similarities like to Sadiq Bey's game in the sense that he's a guy that like he might do a lot of his work beyond the arc. But I think there's a lot to like about his game, his overall versatility, his commitment to winning,
Yeah.
his commitment to doing the winning plays. I think that's someone that can come in and really be a solid contributor. But again, for me, just from all of the guys that I've seen this team pass on in the past, I just would have a very hard time if one of those guys are there for the taking, to not at least take the swing
Yeah.
because, in my opinion, more Keegan Murray's come out than Donovan Mitchell's or Devin Booker's or
Right.
things like that. So, and I'm not saying that these guys are that at all. I'm not.
Yeah.
However, they have the better chance of getting there than Keegan Murray does. Let's just call it the way it is, right? However, if you go to the ESPN mock drafts, they have the scenario that I dread, which is at the 4th pick, the Sacramento Kings, for some stupid reason, select Jaden Ivey. Now, Jeff, am I overplaying it? Which, by the way, we'll look at the top 3. This one has it very similar. So it's Jabari, Chet, Paolo.
Mhm.
So really, those 3 guys are interchangeable in every single mock draft you're going to see.
Yeah.
That's not going
The
to change.
draft starts at 4, really.
The draft starts at 4, and here they go with Jaden Ivey. Jeff, why would Jaden Ivey be a good selection for the Sacramento Kings? I can understand if you want to trade De'Aaron Fox and you want to flip Fox and restart with Ivy, but like, isn't that kind of the circle they've been on for a while now?
Yeah, and it's almost like they're trying to correct their Tyrese Halliburton mistake if they were to take a Jaden Ivey. And I
Exactly.
guess it would. I don't know how I'd feel about it. I mean, listen, I would love to ask Leo because this is again, this is a player that also is going to be ready to play, and I would actually prefer Jaden Ivey over Shaden Sharp, just because
Mm-hmm.
of if you're the Kings, you want to win sooner than later, and Jaden Ivey and Keegan Murray both fit that mold. But like to your
Right.
point, I mean, Keegan Murray just a guy who can play completely off the ball. He doesn't want it to affect anything. Like Leo even said about the Kings, they want to put the ball more in De'Aaron Fox's hands,
Mm-hmm.
and now you're going to draft Jaden Ivey. Like it
Right.
just it doesn't make sense. Keegan Murray is a better fit to me.
Right. And it's interesting to me that they list him as power forward center. I
Yeah,
mean,
he
he's,
ain't a
he's not
center.
gonna he's not gonna play 5 in the NBA. He could play small ball 5 without a doubt, but he's not gonna play natural 5 at
No,
all.
no.
No. But and then you go to the Ringer. The Ringer is the exact same thing. It's almost the exact same as the Detroit News mock draft, where they have almost the exact same order. So Jeff, there's a little bit of a consensus forming in the mock draft community. I think right now it's safe to say, even though we've already obviously heard the names that are in contention from James Edwards III, from the Athletic, but as we're kind of getting to as we're getting closer and closer to the draft, we're still at a point where there's not a consensus. But it does seem like the list of names that we're considering is shrinking, does it not?
Yeah, I mean, there's probably a good, I would say, 4 players. I know, you have your Ben Mather and Keegan Murray, Shaden Sharp, Jaden Ivey. I mean, you could throw really, you could throw AJ Griffin in there as well. But still, at number 5, that's a lot of good players. I think that's
Yep.
I would be happy with pretty much any of those guys. But there's preferences, and that's what makes this time so interesting because you have your guys tell me I'm crazy for liking Shaden Sharp, which go ahead, I don't mind it. But again, it's all about who you like. And Troy Weaver, I think that's why this interview process is so important, because it's going to kind of clear, up a lot of things, and they're going to be able to kind of limit down their selection. That's why Jaden Ivey, I think right now, if I had to say a player that makes the most sense, it's probably Jaden Ivey, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
But we all have our personal preferences. Like I like Shaden Sharp, but Jaden Ivey or Keegan Murray just makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Or Ben Mathurin, even then.
Yeah, in my opinion, you go with the most with who has the most talent at that selection. Who's the best player available?
I agree.
And so if you're in a situation where you have your pick at those three players, which the Pistons realistically could have their pick at those three guys, it's just, to me, it's hard to see them passing up on both Ivy and Sharp. Now, again, Keegan Murray is a plug-and-play guy, and there's a lot of value in having more players like him on your roster. And if we do ultimately select Keegan Murray, I'm not going to be upset about it, in the sense that we're getting a really good NBA player. Like, I know for a fact Keegan Murray is not going to be a bust. Like, I feel comfortable in that. Like, I know he's going to come in and be a solid 15-point-a-game player throughout his career. But what can Jaden Ivey be? What can Shaden Sharp be? And those are the unknowns and the things that we like to talk about.
And there's so many different things Troy Weaver can play with. Like, you could draft a Jaden Ivey, keep Jeremy Grant, or you could trade Jeremy for the 7th pick, take a Keegan Ivey and Ben Mathurin. Like, there's so many, and that's what makes this draft even more interesting, because there's a ton of ways Troy Weaver can go about it. So it's going to be exciting as we get closer.
Absolutely. And Jeff, as of the time that this video comes out, we are only 16 days away from the draft. It's happening on the 23rd. It's going to be happening again live on Woodward Sports. We will be bringing it yet again, just like we did for the lottery, which, by the way, y'all showed out and showed up for that. So thank you all so much. It was a huge success. We're excited to blow that out of the water for the draft. It's going to be great. But let us know what your thoughts are of these mock drafts in the comment section down below. I know Truth Teller is going to be there telling us why Benedict Mathurin's going to be on these lists. And we're still sleeping. But in all seriousness, I want to thank y'all so much for tuning in. And we will catch you next time from Half Court. Be sure to subscribe and join the From Half Court Army.